send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Sinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, the focus lies on the CAF preliminary round stages this weekend, while all eyes will be on the 200-meter men and women's final out at the World Championships in Tokyo. I'll give you details of these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Onele Ntinzi with our news update and Msibudi Makura with our sports headlines. It is 12:06 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, today on hashtag Africa Updates Us, we focus on African countries and just looking at a group of protesters marching to the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria in South Africa over a deal for Eswatini to house convicted criminals from the United States of America. Meanwhile, the Ghanaian government has been sued by 11 deportees from the U.S. Now, our question to you today is, are African countries doing enough to stand up against the U.S. deporting convicted criminals to the continent? Let us know your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Malawi has just concluded its general election held this week on Tuesday, and as a result continue to be tallied in the capital, Lilongwe. Civil society has been reflecting on the role of NGOs in the electoral process. Now, the Council of Non-Governmental Organizations of Malawi has raised concerns over limited resources, reduced international support, and the challenges this posed for civic education and voter turnout. Now, Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe spoke to the Council for Non-Governmental Organizations of Malawi's national chairperson, George Jobe, and shared his observations on voter participation, election transparency, and the importance of patience as Malawians await the official announcement of results. Let's take a listen.
What we expected, and it has always been a tradition, is that NGOs would flood the country, bring information to the people. But this time around, most the NGOs struggled to find funding. This was also made worse with the closure of USAID in the country and the stoppage of aid provision by the US government. Hence, NGOs have not done civic education adequately as required, which has been reflected by the turnout of voters. That in some places, especially in Lilongwe City, we have seen at some polling centers where 50% voted, 50% did not vote, or a certain good percentage, if it is less than 50, which caused some worries because we believe if we had enough resources, funding, and had done adequate civic education, not leaving much of the work to the Malawi Electoral Commission and the political parties, we could have would brought in many voters, and every vote could have served the purpose. We have also had a chance to observe. We were accredited by the Malawi Electoral Mission to observe the receipt of electoral materials, including ballot papers and the distribution and the voting. So far, we haven't had the problems, because the problems would be seen if there would be disagreements between the players themselves, the political parties. We have seen them receiving the ballots together, and we have monitored some centers. There was a peace. Of course, we had some delays in some other areas because of gadgets. They would delay for 30 minutes. Good enough. The delayed time was added at the end, which was good. In the run-up towards the elections, we could also see some misunderstandings that came aboard, and as a Council for NGOs in the country, in Malawi, we also advised, especially on the use of Smartmatic machine, where it was like rumored that the machine had caused problems in other countries, or the machine had been used to rig. So different players, with the information they had, they came aboard, and we saw the Malawi Electoral Commission coming in to clarify. One thing that has been made clear, and it is being repeatedly said, is that the use of gadgets or a system will be complemented by the manual work. Like we have seen the counting of the votes being done manually, filling of some forms being done manually, and at the moment there is a need for transmission of votes from constituency tally centers to the district tally centers, from the district tally centers and now to the national tally center. So that hybrid, we believe it is going to bring some objectivity and take away some fears that people had, that the electronic means might be tampered with. It is a process. Our wish as NGOs is that everything must end peacefully. And as such, indeed, people are anxious to know the results, but it would be important if people were patient enough to wait for the Malawi Electoral Commission to deal with everything and then officially announce. It is unfortunate that we have heard about some pockets of the people on social media posting results and others refuting the results and the like, which can be recipe for a civil strife from the people. And if that happened, then the work of the NGOs would be affected, because NGOs must work in a peaceful country. So our appeal to everyone is to wait peacefully. We hold our peace, and until at the end we will get official announcement. We are happy that the Malawi Electoral Commission is also sharing some of the complaints they have received and how they are resolving them. That transparency, that's what we need.
And that was the Council of Non-Governmental Organizations Malawi National Chairperson George Jobe, ending that report with Michael Mbewe. It is 14 after 12 Central African Time.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Now, as vote counting continues in Malawi's general election, political parties have been cautioned against declaring themselves winners before the Malawi Electoral Commission has formally released the results. It comes after the ruling Malawi Congress Party claimed victory. And to discuss this and more, we are joined on the line by a political scientist and lecturer at the University of Malawi, Ernest Tindwa. Ernest, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, Ernest, these elections were seen as a two-horse race between Lazarus Chakwera and Peter Mutharika. What about former President Joyce Banda, who also contested? Where does she fit into the picture?
As you rightly said, this is a two-horse race. Incumbent President Lazarus Chakwera of the Malawi Congress Party and Arthur Peter Mutharika of the DPP, the largest opposition and he is a former president. Joyce Banda really is not doing very well, and that is expected. All surveys that have been done pre-election did suggest Joyce Banda didn't have a chance. The most optimistic projection for Joyce Banda vote share was at 2%. This time she is attracting less than 1%. So she is not doing well, and not surprising.
And now let's take a look at the former president Peter Mutharika, 85 years old, and people have clearly rallied behind him. What are the reasons behind the continued support that he is seeing?
You know, this is an election which I would describe as an election for no approval. It's either maintenance or rejection, meaning maintaining the current administration or rejecting it. Voting for Peter Mutharika, not that people have so much hope in Peter Mutharika. As you rightly said, he's 85 years old, but also the previous record is not so impressive. However, people have turned to the opposition as an alternative because they are presenting a vote of protest. They have been extremely disappointed because the current administration came on a platform of fixing the economy and dealing with corruption, which is a huge problem for the Malawian government. Now, the incumbent administration has done badly on both. The economy is in tatters, inflation is quite high, prices are rising every day, and as you can imagine, unemployment in Malawi is too high, and people's buying capacity is too low because this is one of the poorest countries in the world. Beyond that, as I said, the fight against corruption really, instead of launching a real fight against corruption, corruption seems to be taking pace. So the current administration has failed miserably on all electoral pledges. The reason people are looking at the 85-year-old as an alternative, not as an approval, but the rejection of the current administration.
Now, more than 60% of registered voters turned out to cast their ballots. What do you make of the voter apathy?
It is an issue that we really need to interrogate further, but preliminary suggestions would be that really, if you look at recent surveys regarding citizen support for democracy and elections, the rating, or rather people's voice, suggests they have no faith in democracy, they have no faith in elections. Actually, the survey report suggests that there is an increasing number now that is losing faith in democracy and would rather have a dictatorship, though it remains a very small proportion of such views, but it has been increasing in recent years, meaning people are not seeing any link between their voting extra and their well-being. They see no link. If anything, living conditions are worsening. Periodically, every 5 years, they are voting, being promised things will get better. Instead of getting better, they are getting worse. That's one reason that could explain the increasing voter apathy, because there is no really improvement in people's lives despite being urged to go out and vote.
Now, caution given to political parties not to declare victory ahead of the official announcement by the Malawi Electoral Commission. Why do you think it is very important for, this to be done, especially when it comes to the official announcements, where we found previously that there would be announcements of individuals declaring themselves winners and just causing a lot of friction, for lack of a better word?
That is particularly significant for the Malawi Electoral Commission, because the Commission understands the stakes are too high, particularly for the incumbent administration, and the largest opposition party, which is DPP. The stakes are too high because Malawian politics is a zero-sum game. You win or you lose. If you lose, the prices to pay are quite high. So interest really are very entrenched. The reason parties have come forward to declare a victory, even when they have no supporting data to do so. Ideally, it's about mind games, so that they can influence the voters' perception. The vote is being counted. Earlier indications suggested the 85-year-old Peter Mutharika of the opposition party is in the lead, but those indications were largely based on results that have been collected by the media and the other institutions that have an interest in the electoral process, and concentrating in the area where the opposition party is very strong. The results from the stronghold of the incumbent administration are just coming in, and they are showing a good performance by the incumbent administration.
Yeah.
That being the case, the general picture is that the incumbent administration is trailing the opposition party. As a result, the ruling party went further to declare victory, and the opposition party responded by also declaring victory. All this is about mind games. Really, it's not so clear about who is going to win this election. But as I said, indications suggest the opposition party is taking an early lead.
Yeah. Well, Ernest, we have run out of time and are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was a political scientist and lecturer at the University of Malawi, Ernest Tindwa, joining us on the line.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The U.S. is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document. And so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there. And our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 23 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The Ghanaian government has yet to comment on the lawsuit filed by 11 people who were deported to the country from the United States. The deportations are part of the U.S. government's hardline approach towards immigration since President Donald Trump took office in January. And to speak to us further, we are joined on the line by their lawyer, Oliver Barker Formavor, joining us on the line. Oliver, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you, Lula. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, Oliver, you say the deportees had not violated any Ghanaian law, and their detention in a military camp was therefore illegal. Tell us more about the action that has been instituted.
As we know, 14 individuals were brought into Ghana, as the president confirmed. According to the presidency, those 14 had all been repatriated. But then we got contacted, the law firm got contacted by their lawyers in the US. We showed that these individuals, 11 of them were still in Ghana. About 8 of them were under protective orders by US courts, which was preventing their repatriation out of the country and being brought into Ghana. Now, these are persons who are asylum seekers, meaning that they have genuine based fears of being repatriated and sent back to their home countries, which is what Ghana is trying to do. So the lawsuit in one regard is seeking to prevent the government from repatriating them to the countries where they have genuine fear for their lives. And secondly, as well, to sue Ghana. These persons have been held in detention since they arrived in Ghana about 2 weeks ago without any violation of without any crime committed, without any legal basis for their being brought into Ghana. Now, a couple of days ago, we know that the Minister for Foreign Affairs in Ghana claims that Ghana has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the US. That agreement, according to Ghanaian law, should have been brought before Parliament and ratified before Parliament. The government has not done that. So as far as we are concerned, that agreement is a secret agreement that nobody knows what the content is of. But whatever the case may be, that agreement cannot be the basis for detaining individuals who have not committed any crime under Ghanaian law. The government also claims that the reason why the persons have been brought into Ghana, West African nationals, is because there's existing within ECOWAS, which is the regional bloc, an agreement that allows for free movement of persons. And so bringing them into Ghana would allow them to move about freely. But we are saying that that protocol that exists within ECOWAS is for the free and voluntary movement of persons and goods. It is not a basis for involuntary or forced repatriation of persons who are asylum seekers in other countries. So these are some of the issues that we're putting before the court. We had a first hearing yesterday, and the matter has been adjourned to Tuesday, 23rd of September, for further arguments.
Now, the government says they received 14 people, but you're representing 11 people. What has happened to the others?
Our understanding is that 3 of them have already been repatriated back to their respective countries. As we speak, as part of the lawsuit that has been filed in the U.S., on the U.S. side, we know that those individuals have testified that even back in their country, they are in hiding because of the fear of repercussions to them. But also importantly, I need to emphasize that the Minister for Foreign Affairs also indicated that Ghana is expecting to receive 40 more deportees. And that's something that we're preparing for as well.
Now, has there been any reaction from the Ghanaian government regarding the lawsuit?
In fact, for a long time, the Ghanaian government was denying the presence of these persons in Ghana. The president and the Minister of Foreign Affairs have all claimed that these persons have left. We had to, through our own investigative means, be able to locate the persons who were being held in a military camp. Now, we reached out to the military high command regarding the detention of these persons. They denied holding the persons and, in fact, said that it was against the military law to hold civilians in military custody. But we have been able to receive video confirmation of where they are being detained. We have been able to speak to them. We have been able to confirm their location, even though the authorities are denying us access to be able to interact with these persons. We know for sure they are in Ghana, despite claims to the contrary.
Now, you've touched on the court order in the U.S. Protecting these individuals from being deported to Ghana. Now, with these 5 detainees, 5 of the detainees, are the 5 part of those suing the Ghanaian government? Just give us a bit of background without giving us too much information on your clients.
Of course, 8 of them were beneficiaries of protective orders from U.S. courts, and they are all part of our clients that we are representing. All of them are being represented. We're going through the U.S. asylum process based on genuine fears of whether political persecution, religious persecution, or even sexual orientation persecutions that they were facing in their home countries, which is the basis of the asylum claims. In fact, a couple of them were also granted protective orders from being repatriated based on torture that they had suffered in their home countries. So these are serious questions of human rights obligations that are in play here. And of course, one of the things that our lawsuit is calling attention to is Ghana's own international obligations under the 1951 UN Convention on Refugees and also the OAU, African Convention relating to refugees, which Ghana is violating by participating and signing an agreement with the U.S. to repatriate individuals who are under genuine fear for their lives.
Now, opposition MPs are demanding the immediate suspension of the deal until Parliament ratifies it. Now, has government broken any laws by already allowing the first batch of deportees into the country and still with the expectation of 40 more also being sent through? And then also very quickly in wrapping up, how much money is the Ghanaian government receiving or has received for these individuals?
Now, these are critical questions. Of course, yes, the government has broken Ghanaian constitutional law by acting upon an agreement that has not been ratified by Parliament. It has broken Ghanaian immigration laws by admitting individuals, many of them without travel documents, things that are beyond the scope of what the executive is able to do under our laws. But also importantly, it's surprising that the government has not submitted this agreement to Parliament for ratification, which begs the question, what are they trying to hide? I say this because the current government was voted in just about 8 months ago, and it controls Parliament by more than 2/3 majority. It's never happened in our democracy before. They have even a mandate to amend our constitution. So to have such overwhelming majority in Parliament and refuse to submit the deal, then it means that they're more concerned about issues of transparency. Now, the government has come out and claimed that they are not receiving any money and that they are only doing this for humanitarian reasons. A lot of people have called BS, pardon my French, on this. So the truth of what it is, in fact, nobody knows what the government is. What is the quid pro quo arrangement, whether it is something direct or indirect, such as one of the things we know that Ghana has been worried about is the tariffs that have been imposed on the country. We know that could be a motivation for the government in getting into this. But at this point, it's all speculation without having a copy of the agreement that was entered into.
Well, Oliver, I hope we'll be able to speak to you again once the developments change with regards to this particular lawsuit. And, moving forward, once you have more details as to what is going to happen going forward. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's a lawyer representing the 11 deportees from the U.S., Oliver Baka-Vomavor, joining us on the line. And it is time for our news headlines with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A handful of protesters from Eswatini, including the Swaziland Youth Congress, have gathered outside the union buildings in South Africa's capital, Pretoria. The group is making its way to the U.S. Embassy in protest against reports of a $500 million deal between King Mswati III and the United States to house convicted U.S. criminals in Eswatini. South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has raised concern that Police Minister Senzo Mchunu's alleged associate Brian Mkhotsi had access to information that was reserved for crime intelligence. And the British and Irish government agreed to announce a new agreement on how killings from the conflict in Northern Ireland should be investigated. Channel Africa News, on Cincy.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. So Kenya are hoping that legend Faith Kipyegon as well as Emmanuel Wanyoni will deliver 2 gold medals on the penultimate day of the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo, Japan on Saturday. So Kipyegon defends her title in the women's 5,000 meter final, while Wanyoni is looking to add more gold medals to his 800 meter gold that he won at the Paris Olympic Games just last year. So the Olympic champion has carried that Paris Games form into the season, but the only question mark is to whether he has overdone himself at this season. The 21-year-old, who many believe is capable of breaking his compatriot David Rudisha's world record, was pushed all the way in the Diamond League final in Zurich in Switzerland just last month. Now, meanwhile, Kenya's women's have also outshone their better rivals in Ethiopia in the distance races so far in the championships, and on paper it is unlikely to change in the final of the 5,000 meter on Saturday. So that final likely sold out, by the way, at the Tokyo Stadium. We'll see also Faith Kipyegon going up against her compatriot Beatrice Chebet of Kenya, hoping to get a double medal. That's of course a 1 and 2 if all things go their way in terms of how that 800 meter final will go on Saturday. Meanwhile, Team South Africa leader Jean Fester has praised the 49 team for the spirit of determination at the ongoing World Championships in Tokyo. While medals have been elusive so far for Team South Africa, he highlighted the team's youthful makeup, with many athletes building towards the 2028 Olympic Games in the USA.
And we still have quite a few exciting days left. Johanna du Plessis in the javelin is a contender for a medal. We also have 3 very young athletes in the women's shot put, one of very few countries who had 3 athletes to qualify in that event. Also Victor Hogan in the men's discus. And obviously the relays is very big events for South Africa. All our sprinters are ready for it, been training very hard. Tomorrow morning will be their last hard session with regards to exchanges, etc. And yeah, we're looking forward to a very good last few days.
On to football news now. South Africa as well as Angola will face off in the final of the Total Energies CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations, a COSAFA qualifier in Harare, Zimbabwe on Saturday, safe in the knowledge that they have already booked their places in the continental finals. Now, South Africa defeated the Comoros by 7-0 and Angola aced Mozambique 1-0 in the other semi-final that was played on Thursday to seal their spots in the decider at the Ngoni Stadium. There is still a chance for the 2 last 4 losers to earn their place in the Total Energies CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations tournament when they meet in the 3rd place playoff match for the bronze medal, also to be staged on Saturday. So COSAFA will now have 3 representatives again at the continental finals, where they will also be hoping to turn hope to, they will in turn hope to be among the 10 nations from Africa at the expanded 48-team FIFA Under-17 World Cup taking place in Qatar next year. Meanwhile, the South African Football Associations have confirmed that they have received a communication from FIFA that World Football Governing Body is now investigating the Teboho Mokoena saga. The Bafana midfielder was fielded in the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Lesotho in March, despite having collected 2 yellow cards. The 28-year-old Mokoena was ineligible to play in that match, where Bafana won it by 2-0 in Polokwane in the Limpopo province. If found guilty, South Africa could be docked 3 points. Now, SAFA's executive officer Lydia Monyapao says they will be in touch with FIFA sometime next week.
We've received confirmation from FIFA that they are investigating the matter, which is something that we've been waiting for a very long time. So it's now on the table, and we are preparing our defense for that. And we need to be reverting to FIFA in the next couple of days. So all our attention is on that. We've got attorneys that have already been appointed to help us as well.
Meanwhile, Monyapao also says that the team's objective now is to win the 2 remaining matches regardless of the outcome of the FIFA investigation.
The focus, when I spoke to Coach Hugo Bruce, it's about ensuring that we get maximum points come October. Anything else is a noise to us. Teboho, Nigeria, whatever, it's noise to us. For us, it's about ensuring that the team remains focused.
All right, so that concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
Malawians go to the polls next week in a high-stakes general election where citizens will choose a new president and 229 members of parliament. And this comes 5 years after the country's 2019 election was annulled by the Constitutional Court due to widespread irregularities in a landmark decision that overturned the victory of the then President Peter Mutharika.
I'm not saying we're a perfect government. No, nobody is. I mean, we've seen even South Africa facing challenges with the fuel that's going up and with whatever challenges. But you know what? When you are dealing with an IMF policy that says do not employ so many people because you are going to become a welfare government and all of that. And Dr. Chakwera said I've got high numbers of unemployment. As a government that is answerable to Malawians, we have found IMF policies wanting on many issues. We believe the people who pay us taxes to put us in our positions. We owe them employment at the minimum.
That's Dr. Jesse Kwabila, who's the Minister of Higher Education in Malawi.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good afternoon. In our top business story at this hour, Zimbabwe has lifted its 2025 economic growth forecast on the back of a bigger tobacco harvest and this year's rally in the global gold price. Zimbabwean Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube says they now see the economy growing 6.6% this year, higher than the projected 6%. The country's commodity-dependent economy recorded growth of 2% last year as an El Nino-induced drought hit crop yields and hydropower, forcing it to import grain. South Africa has become the first country on the continent to welcome Emirates' retrofitted Boeing 777. The aircraft was officially unveiled with a water salute, showcasing upgrades that include the introduction of a premium economy cabin. Emirates Vice President of Commercial Operations of Sub-Saharan Africa, Rashida Lada, says the launch of the airline is the aircraft's commitment to the African continent.
We remain committed to South Africa and broader Africa, and to growing traffic in and out of the region. We have been unwavering in our commitment to Africa's aviation, tourism, and trade sectors, creating new opportunities for mutual growth and prosperity, and I look forward to working with all of you moving forward.
South Africa's Deputy Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Naren Singh, says there's a need to accelerate beneficiation. Singh was speaking at the opening of the second African Biotrade Festival taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg. Singh says the conference is an initiative to help communities understand how to use natural resources responsibly.
And we're also here to educate people about not exploiting some of the products. You know, some people debark trees and do all sorts of things. So we work with these communities, traditional healers, and we're very pleased to have the San community represented here to talk to them about how to use these natural products responsibly, because we have to save them for future generations. So I think this is a great job creator. It's a great platform for innovation.
Experts in South Africa are concerned about the correlation between alcohol advertising and how it shapes drinking habits and underage consumption of liquor. The Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance has collated data indicating that children repeatedly exposed to alcohol advertising are more likely to start drinking heavily at a young age. This after the University of Cape Town and the Western Cape government surveyed 49,000 grade 8s and 9 learners across 123 schools. The South African Medical Research Council spokesperson, Professor Sue Goldstein, has reacted to the findings.
So what they're talking about is restricting alcohol advertising reduces youth drinking. So there's one of those reviews which actually shows that. And then there's consistent evidence along a whole range of studies that are ongoing. So these studies start with at a period, say last year, and then they carry on for a number of years. And that's very important because the longitudinal study helps us to understand causality. So
a plan to reduce people's calorie intake by putting Teflon into food is one of the winners of this year's IG Nobel Prizes. The Nobel Prize's poorer and much less serious relation, the BBC's Peter Hitt reports.
The chemistry prize went to two brothers who decided Teflon, which has no calories, could make up to a quarter of our food by volume and then just slide out. They even made and ate Teflon chocolate, but American regulators weren't impressed. Other winners in a food-heavy list included studies which found that lizards prefer 4-cheese pizza, that bats fly less well if they've had alcohol, and that breastfeeding babies prefer their mothers to have eaten garlic. But there was bad news for hungry flies. Another prize went to a study which found that cows were bitten less if they were painted with zebra-like stripes.
And now for our first look at the indicators this afternoon, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,493 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 11. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 39. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 49. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 30 this afternoon. Russia, 83 rubles 40. India, 88 rupees 10. China, 7 yuan 10. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 37 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,658 per ounce, platinum at $1,391, while Brent crude oil is at $67.01 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It is 12:46 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A small crowd of protesters gathered outside the Union buildings in South Africa's capital, Pretoria. The crowd includes organizations from Eswatini, the Swaziland Youth Congress, and the People's United Democratic Movement. They are making their way to the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria in protest against reports of a $500 million deal between King Mswati III and the United States to house convicted U.S. criminals in Eswatini. Other groups say their country is being treated like a dumping site and the deal violates the country's sovereignty. Channel Africa's Nhlanhla Mahlangu is there and caught up with Phumlani Nxumalo, the Deputy President of the Swaziland Youth Congress.
So we are having this march here in Pretoria because of a deal that King Mswati of Eswatini had with the US of deporting several, of which already now we have 5 criminals who are deported in Eswatini, and we have learned that a number of more than 150 are still yet to come. So we are trying to raise to the African about imperialism, which is now using Eswatini to attack the southern part of Africa. So the deal of King Mswati it was worth something like 10 billion rands to keep the US criminals in Eswatini.
So what would you like to see happening? What would you like the US Embassy to do?
Actually, the reason we came here, we should be in the US Embassy in Eswatini. So because of the oppression and the suppression of dissenting views in Eswatini, 2 months back, after they deported the S5 cluster, there is an organization that is the Rural Eswatini Assembly that tried to do a march in Eswatini, and they were never given attention. So coming here in South Africa, it is the nearest, and we believe that it is an issue that touches even the South African part. So the reason we came here is to voice our grievances, because we understand the implications that comes with this deal, and we understand that soon we might even have a US base in Eswatini. So ours is to try to raise awareness to the South African people, the Southern African people, and to the embassy that we are actually not part of this, and we are all aggrieved just that it's a deal between the Eswatini government and the US. Swazis are all of them, even the parliament, were not aware of this deal.
That was Phumlani Nxumalo, the Deputy President of the Swaziland Youth Congress, and he was speaking to Channel Africa's Nhlanhla Mahlangu.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
To the big story now in South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has implicated two members of South Africa's parliament in wrongdoing during his testimony at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into criminality and corruption in the justice system. He accused National Coloured Congress leader Fadil Adams of accessing and misusing classified intelligence without authorization, bypassing proper parliamentary channels to make unverified claims that led to an arrest in crime intelligence. Mkhwanazi also accused the Democratic Alliance Member of Parliament Diane Collar-Barnard with abusing her role by publicly disclosing secrets, inciting attacks on the unit and flouting oversight rules over a controversial property deal. Collar-Barnard has refuted these allegations. Now, we are joined on the line by our reporter who is covering the story, Dimakatso Lishoro. Dimakatso, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on day 3 of the Madlanga Commission. What has unfolded, especially just looking at Diane Collar-Barnard refuting these allegations made against her, saying that there has been, saying that basically she wasn't involved, or what is it? What is the response to this?
Well, he's called those remarks or allegations outrageous, saying that prior to she made that statement or released that statement prior to her being a member of the Joint Committee on Standing Committee on Intelligence. So she's refuted that there was anything wrong that she had done, because what Mkhwanazi had accused her of was not, in his words, keeping her mouth shut about issues of intelligence. But this morning, Lulu, we've been hearing, it's like every day it's shocking revelations, right? The Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, has today claimed that the presidency interfered in policing matters. This relates to a company in Richards Bay. Richards Bay is in KwaZulu-Natal here in South Africa. This company called Richards Bay Minerals, apparently they had a problem where their executives were targeted and killed, and the police, they could not crack these cases. So Mkhwanazi, being the commissioner of the province, and him leading this political killing task team that we've been speaking about since Wednesday, then dispatched members of this team to try and investigate these cases. But after a year of them being deployed, they couldn't crack the cases either, brought them back to the head office, only to receive a call from the national commissioner who is in Pretoria, saying that the presidency is complaining and wants these people deployed back to guard this one company out of all the businesses and crimes that are happening in Richards Bay. This a highly specialized team. It was not only the political killing task team, but also our specialized, the National Interactive, the NIU that deals with issues of crime intelligence, cash in transit heists. Those were the members that were dispatched the task force. Lulu, that these are key elite teams in terms of policing in South Africa. They were dispatched there at the behest or request of the presidency. It's not clear from who, but this was in 2021.
Yeah, and it's very interesting how he says a number of times he was bypassed as a commissioner and not knowing and only finding out through individuals what was happening in his own province. And, having then to say at some point he said he was requested to redeploy this team that had been on the ground for RMB. And then at some point, if you remember correctly, there was where the commissioner, the police commissioner, and I think the minister had to then address RMB business people because they felt they were being sidelined, they were not taken care of. Not RMB, I beg your pardon, but the provinces businesses at that time. And he, basically said the commissioner and the minister would know better. So,
yeah. Indeed. I mean, you can imagine with the amount of crime that the commissioner has detailed that happens in that area because of the mining companies there, and you have the whole contingent of SAPS, which are paid by the state, to go and police one company. I mean, I don't know where does that make sense, but he was excluded from that. The district commissioner was excluded, and the person who had all this information is an individual called Brown Mogotsi. Brown Mogotsi is apparently a political person. He is been labeled as an associate of the minister Senzo Mchunu, who has access, Lulu, to intelligence information, police operations, HR matters, tenders, finances, everything you can think of that has to do with the police. This Brian Mogotsi, whom I might add, is not a police officer, is not involved in any legal way with the police, but he knows everything that happens in the police. And this individual is linked to the very Cat Matlala that we've been speaking about, who is imprisoned. Remember that when he was imprisoned for the charges he's facing now, the attempted murder charges, his cell phone was retrieved, and this is where they're getting all this information about the links to Brown Mogotsi, Mogotsi, who is linked to the minister. So at this point, right, it's not looking good for the police minister. He has a lot to answer for.
And just speaking of the police minister, when is he expected to, face the commission? Because he's also been saying that he's waiting for his day to be able to answer to whatever questions that are being will be posed to him.
Well, we hope he will take that opportunity when it does come, because as you recall, Fadil Abrams was given an opportunity to go and face an investigation, and he never pitched. At this point, it doesn't. I'm not sure if the commissioner's testimony will end today. It looks like he still has a lot to say. Remember, we're also expecting other members of crime intelligence, other members of the police claims tax team to also come and make the representation. Before I forget, Lulu, he also made a concerning allegation that there are journalists who are used to abuse or to defame. Some of these police officers are used by police who are involved in these drug cartels. So you can see that this ring is wide. It involves literally everybody, because if you have money, as we know, Cat Matlala got that tender of 360 million rand from the police, so you can buy everything. So at the moment, he's alleged that journalists are involved and all sorts of people are involved. So this is going to have huge repercussions. Hopefully, something is done by the findings at the end of this.
Yeah, we do hope that that will happen, because when Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi was saying, he keeps saying that you follow the dots. Which is always very interesting. Well, Dimakato, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's our reporter covering the Matlanga Commission, Dimakato Lishoro, joining us on the line. And we say a happy Friday to Tebogo Kuleni of the Upside team. How are you today?
Hello, Lulu. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You're talking all things Matlanga, Commission, all those files being dropped. And so many revelations so far. I think it's, for me, one of the scariest one was knowing that there are public figures, or not public figures, human beings like you and me, who have access to blue lights.
That one, the blue lights without having authorization
and clearance.
Exactly. And then the individual who then brings this to light and says, listen, why is this happening, is then suspended. So there's a lot, when they say the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep.
That's Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
This is exactly it.
And but we have to also find the Mickey in all of this.
Well, we have to.
The water
what
bottles.
What did you find? The water bottles.
I saw the social media having a go at this, because now he brought his own bottles and there was water there set aside for him. And yesterday, I think probably they also saw social media and they had those bottles removed.
There was a loud bang that just happened. Did you see that this morning?
And he said,
and he assured everyone,
no, don't
you're
worry,
safe.
You're safe. was like,
so many things are happening.
All right,
that
so what's
commission.
coming up today?
Here's what's coming up on the upside. Well, quite a few conversations, but the one that I'm most looking forward to this afternoon is in studio. We'll be joined by Jazz World. He's changed his name from Jazz Works and Togutela. They'll be joining us in studio this afternoon to talk about their release of their album. It's called The Most Wanted, possibly one of the best albums of the year. Some are dubbing it that way, and we'll be getting into conversation with them about, they've got 4 songs in the top 10 right now in South Africa and 7 songs in the top 20. They're doing something right, and we can't wait to chat with them.
Wow. Well, that's the upside coming up at the top of the hour on this Friday. That's with Tebohole Kuleni and Matsiko Musito. For myself, Lulu Gaboo and the Africa Update team, this is where we leave it for today. Thank you for joining us, and continue with us on our social media platforms, and have a great weekend. And thank you to our producers, Tracy Bumgar, technical operator Dumelo Mugwena, and our social media, that's Fiso Hlope and Talent Butelezi. Have a good one, and we'll do this again on Monday. Bye-bye.
SABC News.